nothing but the truth. What are the implications of the latest set of tariffs that Trump has imposed on India starting August 1st?
I can see only one reason, that he wants India to do a trade deal very desperately. I see this as a pause in the negotiations, a small comma, not the full stop, just a pressure tactics for which Trump is now too well known.
So, if you take a look at what are the sticky points that have been there and what really has, in some senses been a deal postponer, not a breaker as yet.
We don't have any problems in opening industrial products. So that should ideally solve the trade deficit and high tariff problem of the Trump. But that's not solving. So we feel what is remaining is agriculture and dairy. That's insignificant as far as trade of America to US is concerned. But that's one major sticking point for them. He says India has high non-tariff barriers. What is non-tariff barriers for them? All countries impose non-tariff barriers. And what is non-tariff barrier for them? For example, that India does not allow import of, say, butter, which comes out of the milk of a cow, which has been fed the meat of another cow, internal organs of other cow, blood of another cow. We religious factor or cultural factor, we can't consume.
One of the things that Trump has been pushing for is their genetically modified or GM foods. Crops that are there.
We are not alone in opposing this. European Union, they don't allow the import of most of the GM crops. A decision on GM crop cannot be taken for US. It has to be taken India's decision. If we are allowing it, we are allowing it for all countries. And it cannot be open only for US and not for others. And one immediate disadvantage of opening is that we have large agri exports to EU, it will become zero immediately.
What should India's strategy be now?
Many steps to help American firms. In the last budget, we cut tariffs, say, on satellite parts, on at least 20 items which are of use to the US. So we are helping them. We are allowing their nuclear reactor suppliers into India for the first time. We have allowed Tesla Starlink to start operation in India. These are very critical operations. So many security concerns are there, but we have ignored those things to please US and now operations of Starlink in India. It's not that we don't want to mend ways. We know they are our serious partner. They are our top export partner. Then we are prepared to eliminate tariffs on 95% of our exports, their exports to India. Only 5% is remaining. But hypothetically, if you cut your tariffs on everything, on wheat, rice, agriculture, dairy, it's not going to satisfy. He'll come for more. He will say, don't do local currency trading, don't do trade with this, don't buy from here, don't do that.
So what should we be doing?
Some people are talking that the US is imposing so much tariffs, we should retaliate. I say no. There is no time. This is no time for retaliate. They will be taking many more such actions. The way Trump acts, let's wait for 6 months, make up our mind, think coolly.
Hello, I'm Raj Chengapa of India Today and your host for Nothing But the Truth. This is my weekly X-ray of key issues that matter to you without holding back on the truth. In a sharp escalation of trade tensions between India and the USA, US President Donald Trump has announced a sweeping 25% tariff hike on Indian goods and accused India of maintaining unacceptable tariffs. Adding insult to injury, US President Donald Trump called India a dead economy and castigated Delhi for continuing to purchase oil from Russia and be an integral part of a hostile BRICS bloc that he wants to dissuade. Trump threatened to further penalize India if it continued business with Russia and, of course, with the BRIC countries. For India, these announcements are a serious setback, especially because the Modi government was being perceived to be close to the US president, and America is India's largest trading partner with bilateral trade in goods totaling close to $130 billion in 2024. This, of course, does not include services trade, and if combined, total bilateral trade would be close to $186 billion. That makes US India's largest trading partner. And overall, India has a trade surplus close to $41 billion. Now, despite these harsh words from the US president, India, however, is holding its ground. Union Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal told Parliament that the Modi government would protect its national interests or protect India's national interests and continue negotiations in good faith, but did not indicate any plans for India to retaliate with counter tariffs. That is, at least for now. It seems to be a strategy of restraint, signaling on India's side strength without provocation. So in this episode, we will analyze where are all these trade tensions headed? Are we seeing the early signs of a US-India trade war? Or is this just a hard-nosed power negotiation? What role will geopolitics play from Moscow to Beijing to Brasilia? Will these change the dynamics between India and US? To analyze all these issues, I'm delighted to welcome back at this stage a special guest, Ajay Srivastav, founder of the reputed Delhi-based Global Trade Research Institute. He is a veteran trade negotiator for the Government of India. So, Ajay, welcome back to Nothing But the Truth.
Thanks, Raj. Delighted to be here.
Ajay, let's start with what are the implications of the latest set of tariffs that Trump has imposed on India starting August 1st. We don't know when it's actually going to come into effect. He says he's just waiting for the officials to put it into implementation. And what, in terms of threats, do you think we should be imposing some as well?
So Raj, Trump on his Truth Social announced 2 days back that he'll be imposing 25% tariffs on India, and these tariffs will be applicable from August 1, that is today. India, he is choosing for a special dispensation of his, I call it only his special love, because he is not only imposing, he's calling us dead economy, forgetting that India and China, they are the fastest growing economy in the world. They are pulling the entire world's growth. And he's forgetting those things, so we have to pardon him for that. He always faults, he's always on the wrong side of the facts. So he has some special grouse, and what's the reason of this grouse? I can see only one reason, that he wants India to do a trade deal very desperately. So I see it as a pressure tactics, nothing else, just pressure tactics. But if deal happens and he has not announced, so he's not fed up with India. Else, he would have announced termination of the deal. Deal is still continuing. Last week, we read that US team may be visiting India in the second week of August for next round of negotiations. So negotiations are continuing. I see this as a pause in the negotiations, a small comma, not the full stop, just a pressure tactics for which Trump is now too well known.
But if you take a look at, we've been through 4 major rounds of negotiations apart from virtual meetings and others with the US trade representatives. And there was hope that of 2 things. One, that there would be an early harvest or a mini trade deal. And second, there would be a bilateral trade agreement that would happen sometime in fall. That was the original agreement when the 2 big interlocutors met, Prime Minister Modi and President Trump, and they said, okay, let's work for a fall agreement which is there. So what is being hit? Is it the bilateral trade agreement negotiations will continue, but the hopes of an early harvest deal, is it over?
So Raj, I agree with you. These things were talked, early harvest, then full deal after a few months. But I hear some of, I think Indian leaders, I think some ministers, he said, let's talk about the full deal after a few months, forget about this early harvest. He used some broad language mentioning that there is no early harvest deal. But, looking at the US deals with other countries, Europe, South or Japan, Indonesia, Vietnam, there were no early harvest deal. They were just one set of deals, and all these countries, not the US, they call these deals as in principle deal, which means they needs to be negotiated in full. These are just 1-pager, 2-pager statements. Even Japan's cabinet secretary, they found flaws with the Trump's announcement. They say they never agreed for repatriation of 90% profits in their investments. and they say it has to be on pro rata basis, something like that. Vietnam also said they negotiated 11%, and now Trump announced after talking to his general secretary as 20%. So all countries, they have some problems that they negotiate, say, concession level of A, then Trump makes a call to the Secretary General in Vietnam or Prime Minister of Indonesia and gets them to agree for higher things without the knowledge of the negotiators. So all the countries, I mean, they are not happy, and that's why they call. Even EU is saying it's a framework agreement, it's an in principle agreement. So earlier distinction we had was early harvest and full. Now we say in principle agreement and the full negotiated. None of these countries, they have full negotiated early harvest. They have in principle agreement which needs to be negotiated in full before being implemented. I think that will happen for India also.
So, if you take a look at what are the sticky points that have been there, and what really has, in some senses, been a deal postponer, not a breaker as yet, as you said, but has not, the inability of the two sides to reach an agreement. Where has, what is the crux of the problem? Because earlier, I mean, just to, for those who may not know or have forgotten, that we used to get virtually our goods used to go less than 3% into America. Today it is 25% as of August 1st, which means, as you mentioned earlier, a whole range of industries will be impacted, whether pharmaceuticals, electronics, auto possibly, and other things. So where was the issue that really things went wrong, didn't go according to what the negotiators wanted?
So Raj, officially there is no word or any details about what's happening inside the negotiating room, neither from Indian side, not from the US side. But we, based on our understanding, talking to the experts, we just make out that India should have no problem in making tariffs zero on 95% of exports of US to India. These are industrial
Right.
products. Agriculture products account for less than 5% of US exports to India. We don't have any problems in opening industrial products. So that should ideally solve the trade deficit and high tariff problem of the Trump. But that's not solving. So we feel what is remaining is agriculture and dairy. That's insignificant as far as trade of America to US is concerned. But that's one major sticking point for them. They are very buoyant that they could get a conservative economy like European Union to open their agriculture. A super conservative economy, we could never think of Japan allowing import of rice from US, but Japan also allowed that. So they are confident. I think they should have been confident that they will get from India also. But India, we all know, I think they also know that our problem is that half the population livelihood issue depends on agriculture, and it's not a trade issue for us. It's not a negotiating issue. Most of the core agriculture we cannot touch. No government can touch, and government understands this. That's why government has not agreed. And this point number one. And so whatever is not offered, I say that's the sticking point, that is agriculture and dairy. But beyond that, if you see Trump's Truth Social statement day for yesterday, he says about many more things. For example, he talks about India has high tariffs. Okay, we say we have high tariff, but we are willing to eliminate them for 95% of your exports. He says India has high non-tariff barriers. What is non-tariff barriers for them? All countries impose non-tariff barriers. And what is non-tariff barrier for them? For example, that India does not allow import of, say, butter, which comes out of the milk of a cow, which has been fed the meat of another cow, internal organs of other cow, blood of another cow. We religious factor or cultural factor, we can't consume. We will just vomit listening to this. But they feel it's unscientific. India's stand is unscientific. Similarly, we not allowing free flow of data in all cases is a non-tariff barrier for them. We not allowing full FDI on, say, their e-commerce firm selling using their own platform is a non-tariff barrier. Any policy measure you take which doesn't suit them, their company, is a non-tariff barrier for them. So we cannot satisfy. It's not agriculture or dairy alone. It's endless. Then third thing he said, you buy oil from Russia. Everybody was buying oil from Russia till few months back. Europe was totally dependent on Russia till last week. Now only under US pressure they withdrew. And then he says that you are a dead economy. So that, of course, I can only laugh it off. So, and final one more thing, he says you are a member of the BRICS. So why not? BRICS
Right.
is a harmless international organization. People are
But I think
talking
that was connected with the de-dollarization and trying to de-emphasize the
$3.
dollar.
So
Yes.
if you look at it, I see Trump is very scared inside that US, that unflinching power is slipping from their hands, and how to control that. And for controlling, he has only one tool: tariffs. They want to control the access to the big US market through the tariffs. So he wants to solve all of the US problems: employment, lack of manufacturing, de-dollarization through one tool on which he has the control. He doesn't have
So
the
let's,
control over the.
I mean, in agriculture, I mean, one of the things that that Trump has been pushing for is their genetically modified or GM foods, crops that are there, and we have been resisting that, saying that we do not accept, any GM products to come in. Just give us a little background as to why we are doing that. We can understand with meat products, and that has been there for a long time in terms of feed for livestock, and therefore the import of butter and other dairy goods. We have not allowed US and other countries that have done that. But in terms of the GM, what is the crux? Is it maize again? That is the big issue, or soya? Where are we resisting that imports from?
So far, we have allowed only BT cotton. BT is Bacillus, some bacteria name is there, which has been reduced in the DNA of the cotton to improve the yield. But now you talk to the farmers in, say, Punjab or Maharashtra, they say yield doesn't increase. It gives rise to different type of, it attracts different type of pests which are difficult to handle. So they don't feel it's good. We are not alone in opposing this. European Union, they don't allow the import of most of the GM crops. Problem is not say GM crop. It's not in principle thing. We allow something, and then we sow in our field, and that suppose that crop is ready. Then after this crop is harvested, we sow another crop in the field that remains will be there. So there are chances of other crop being polluted with this. So, for example, in China, they allow this GM crop for 2, 3 type of animal feeds, nothing else. They have very clear segregation rules. In these cities, in these fields, you can sow GM crops, nowhere else. Take all the care from seeds to delivery. GM and non-GM should not mix. We don't have such luxuries to do this looking at our agriculture. And second, conclusively, there is no proof that GM crop is better. And you may find me talking to be on the cynical side if I say, why should I eat a wheat whose DNA has been changed by the insertion of one bacteria? What's the need? What I'm getting is fine. When there is they say that food security, we grow enough for our food security. If any such famine-like condition is there, then we'll talk about these things. We are very happy. And suppose the basic premise of GM, suppose food productivity increases, wheat, rice productivity increases, it increases. What happens to the farmers? Right now, 700 million farmers are doing all these things. So I say, uh, a decision on GM crop cannot be taken for US. It has to be taken India's decision. If we are allowing it, we are allowing it for all countries. What are the protections to be taken like China did, or EU does not like GM crops? There need a vital debate. It's like we are fighting a battle with US, and we are trying to invent new tools in the battlefield. No, we have to develop the tools beforehand and then fight. The tools which we don't have, we should not develop at that point of time. So GM is such thing. I say, take it, India, take a decision. Not for this FTA. Take a decision for your country. And it cannot be open only for US and not for others. And one immediate disadvantage of opening is that we have large agri exports to EU. It will become zero immediately. EU will not accept anything because we cannot segregate GM and non-GM. at the
So
field
you
level.
have big issues with GM, which is fair enough. The only point here is that with USA being our largest trading partner, and the fact that China is, we've been trying in some senses to be the China plus one, the one that could substitute China a lot of places. It looks from whatever indications are that they're heading towards a China deal in some form or the other. What should India's strategy be now? That's the key, isn't it? At the end of the day, any trade deal is a give and take of various kinds. You would lose some, but you'll gain in elsewhere. So it's a negotiation. So what should India be doing in the months ahead? One, with the US, let's start with that. And where are the things that we should be moving towards when it comes to increasing our trade?
So, Raj, we have taken many steps to help American firms. In the last budget, we cut tariffs, say, on satellite parts, on at least 20 items which are of use to the US. So we are helping them. We have we are allowing their nuclear reactor suppliers into India for the first time. We have allowed Tesla Starlink to start operation in India. These are very critical operations. So many security concerns are there, but we have ignored those things to please US and now operations of Starlink in India. It's not that we don't want to mend ways. We know they are our serious partner. They are our top export partner. Then we are prepared to eliminate tariffs on 95% of our exports, their exports to India. Only 5% is remaining. Why they are stuck? Why only we need to move everything? In return, we are not asking for anything from them. But why only we need to move? We are willing to move, say, up to 99%, but 1% we cannot move and we should not move. It's not the question of honor, but we have to have a sense of where we belong to. We are a large economy, not far behind US. If they are number one, we are number three, number four, almost there. So we have to stand like equals. We are not Pakistan. And we say, having said this, I say India needs to give max flexibility to the US. India is giving. We never offered this 95% tariff elimination to anybody so far. No UK, no Japan, no ASEAN, nobody. We are willing to offer. But agriculture, we would have offered agriculture if our only 1-2% population would have been depending on agriculture, like what is the case with US? No, yeah, half the population is there. It's a question of food security. It's beyond trade deal. It's beyond trade. So we cannot compromise on all these things. And then it's not only trade. Through the tariff, he wants to solve many problems. He wants to solve his geopolitical problems like de-dollarization through the tariff, all
Right.
those things. So it gives me a sense, of course, I'm disappointed with this, but that he cannot be, even if you hypothetically, I will never recommend that, but hypothetically, if you cut your tariffs on everything, on wheat, rice, agriculture, dairy, it's not going to satisfy him. He'll come for more. He will say, don't do local currency trading, don't do trade with this, don't buy from here, don't do that. He then allow unhinged operations to US firms in India. No, we cannot go on meeting these demands. We should have a sense of proportion. So I'm very happy the way Indian government has behaved so far. My friends in Europe, I was talking to them. Till 10 days back, they were saying there is going to be no deal with US. We are the country will be talking at the equal level. But suddenly they collapsed. Why? Why Japan collapsed suddenly? Why EU collapsed? Because industrial power, they wield great power on their political system. Not in India. Industry is important for India, but agriculture, people-wise, is as or if not more important for us. We cannot sacrifice anything for the sake of other. And so I'm very happy the way government has behaved so far. And I wish we offer max flexibility to the US, but not sacrificing our red lines on agriculture and dairy.
One of the things we need to look at, we have struck a deal with UK, an ambitious deal. Australia, of course, still not fully fulfilled in terms of that. There's the EFTA deal, as it's called, and we are negotiating with Europe. Of course, earlier we signed something with UAE. On the final part of this particular episode, can we look at if, for instance, US doesn't come around what should India be doing to ensure that we continue to grow as an economy? Supposing, I'm just this hypothetical, we say, okay, we are not going to yield further. Trump imposes serious tariffs against us, puts penalties in terms of importing Russian oil. And for us, anything that happens on the fuel front, we import 80 to 90% of our requirements. Certainly, the prices will, inflation will hit us if we buy at market rates after that and try and get into, if we don't buy it from Russia. So what should we be doing? 3 or 4 big things we should be doing just to protect ourselves in case we are not able to reach an agreement with the US on any of these and we have to look elsewhere.
Raj, all the trade negotiations and trade things are secondary. Primary thing is what products you make. So we have to focus on making great products. If you have a product like iPhone, it will sell. Trade deal or no trade deal, everybody is going to buy for it. So we have to focus on internal reforms, reduce the cost of doing business, reduce the cost of making things. We need some very fundamental thinking on these things, and so we need to be more competitive, and that will increase, that will grow our exports overall. US exports will suffer in the short term, but I feel Trump is a transitory phenomena like all other phenomena, and will be doing good.
I think, of course, I mean, on transitory phenomenon, we have seen that once a US president does this and meets with some success, his successor is going to think, why should I pull back? Let's put more pressure. This seems to be working on things. So it becomes a template. Even Joe Biden, in many senses, may have opposed Trump, but didn't really change the basic structure of pushing various things that's there. My only point is that are there other major avenues? 2 things. Yes, we need to make ourselves more competitive. The only way you make yourself more competitive, whether it's in agriculture, in industry, and other places, is competing with the best in the world and seeing where your products could go. Does this now open, shouldn't we be looking at countries like Africa, which is very, very huge, and our own neighborhood, which we don't seem to be, in terms of our relations, really converting a lot of that into our advantage? Isn't these 2 big areas we should be looking at?
We are doing all the efforts to grow our exports in different countries. If you talk to Commerce Ministry officials, they will tell they have a specific strategy for each of these markets. We need to focus on them more. And I say, suppose we say today our export to US is say $85 billion annual exports. Suppose it comes down by say $25 billion. What if we focus exclusively on promoting international tourism in India? We can get much more than this. We have to think innovatively, out of the box. That cliché word is there. We can have many avenues, if not directly from the growth in products trade, goods trade. We can have many avenues to earn dollars. We have to put our heads together and think innovatively without sacrificing our headlines.
So, to sum up then, Ajay, what you are in a sense saying is this is a pause. This is not a breakdown of the negotiations. India should hold its ground. There are certain red lines that India has, particularly with agriculture and maybe small-scale industries or whichever is dependent on domestic purchases, that you do not relent on that, you hold firm on that, and get, of course, not to sort of discard the US in terms of it. They're an important partner, not just in trade, but in other ways. Try and work a way for them to see the light that India is not being recalcitrant, that it has made the concessions, except on a few areas, and hope that that happens. But if we have to do away with the US, if there's a complete breakdown post the next round of negotiations and Trump moves away, we find alternatives. One is to reshape our own industry, make it more competitive, change the way we are doing things. Second is to look at newer areas that we could export our products and goods and services to that. Am I right? That's the sort of sense that you are talking about at
Raj,
this
you
stage.
summed it up so beautifully. I could not have improved on this. I just would like to add one new
Yes.
point to this, is
Yes.
that some people are talking that the US is imposing so much tariffs, we should retaliate. I say no. There is no time. This is no time for retaliate. They will be taking many more such actions. The way Trump acts, let's wait for 6 months, make up our mind, think coolly about what we can do, and then think about whether we should do or not do anything. We should not jump to any action right now.
Excellent. Let's not be impulsive. Let's be calculative. Let's show where our strengths are and know where we can move things. Thank you very much, Ajay, for these excellent insights into India's trade negotiations with the US. Thank
Thanks,
you so
Raj.
much. So thank you for being with me in this episode of Nothing But the Truth. I look forward to having you with me next week. Nothing But the Truth.